Drive a southern back road in midsummer and you may see a green curtain swallowing everything. Kudzu rolls over fences, climbs poles, covers trees, and turns abandoned buildings into leafy mounds. It looks like an invasion no one could have invited. But America did invite it. During the 1930s and 1940s, federal soil agencies helped distribute roughly 85 million kudzu plants. The government offered farmers up to $8 for every acre they planted. Then the official language reversed. In 1953, the USDA removed kudzu from an approved conservation program. In 1997, Congress wrote it into federal noxious weed law. America paid farmers to plant kudzu, then declared war on it. The easy explanation is that a reckless government imported a monster. The stranger truth is that kudzu worked well enough to become dangerous, but only after the farms, animals, and human labor around it began to disappear. To understand that reversal, we have to follow one vine from a World's Fair to exhausted cotton fields, a Georgia broadcaster's front porch, and finally, the roadsides where kudzu learned to look unstoppable. Kudzu first appeared before a large American audience at the Japanese pavilion of the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in 1876. Visitors saw a lush ornamental vine with broad leaves and fragrant purple flowers. In the following decades, nurseries sold it for shade. Southern homeowners let it climb porches and courtyards. By the early 1900s, promoters were also presenting kudzu as livestock forage. It was a legume. Cattle would eat its young leaves, and its roots could survive dry periods that damaged other pasture plants. None of that made kudzu a national project. Erosion did. By the 1930s, large areas of the South carried the scars of repeated cotton cultivation. Heavy rains struck exposed ground. Topsoil washed downhill. Small channels became deep gullies. Productive fields lost both soil and value. This was not simply a story of careless farmers. Cotton markets, debt, land tenure, drought, and generations of demanding production had all shaped the landscape. The damage was physical, economic, and impossible to ignore. The federal government responded with a new kind of conservation campaign. The Soil Erosion Service began in 1933. 2 years later, the Soil Conservation Service was established inside the Department of Agriculture. Its job was urgent: keep American soil on American farms. Kudzu was not the government's only answer. Conservation workers also promoted terraces, contour plowing, crop rotation, and other practices fitted to particular farms. But kudzu had a powerful visual advantage. Bare red ground could become green quickly. On a damaged slope, that green cover looked like proof that recovery had already begun. Kudzu seemed almost designed for the assignment. It grew quickly across open ground. Its thick cover softened the impact of rain. Its roots held damaged slopes. As a nitrogen-fixing legume, it could grow on depleted land while producing something animals might eat. In 1944, the USDA published a full farmers bulletin titled "Kudzu for Erosion Control in the Southeast." The document treated the vine not as a curiosity, but as a tool: where to establish it, how to use it, and why a farmer might want it. That bulletin matters because it changes the moral picture. Officials were not trying to create an invasive plant crisis. They were confronting an erosion crisis already in progress. Kudzu promised speed at a moment when slow answers felt inadequate. And then one man helped turn that practical promise into a southern crusade. Channing Cope was a newspaper columnist, radio personality, and gentleman farmer outside Covington, Georgia. On his Yellow River farm southeast of Atlanta, he grew kudzu as forage and made the vine part of a much larger argument about saving southern land. Cope had something a government bulletin did not: a voice people recognized. Through the Atlanta Constitution and radio broadcasts, he presented kudzu as more than ground cover. It was a miracle vine, a way to turn worn-out land green again. His message joined conservation, farm optimism, and showmanship. That translation mattered. A technical agency could describe erosion in reports. Cope could make land repair sound like a movement ordinary Southerners could join. The vine became a symbol of reversal. Poor soil made productive, gullies hidden under leaves, and exhausted farms given another chance. In 1943, Cope founded the Kudzu Club of America. Its membership eventually reached about 20,000. Across the South, there were kudzu clubs, planting contests, festivals, and even kudzu queens. This sounds absurd now because we know the ending. At the time, it looked like civic enthusiasm for land repair. Club membership does not prove that every member planted a field. It proves something equally important. Kudzu had gained social approval. Planting it could feel modern, responsible, and hopeful, not reckless. Here is the turn at the center of this story. Kudzu became a monster when America stopped treating it like a crop. Government nurseries supplied the scale. The Civilian Conservation Corps also planted kudzu. Extension histories report that roughly 85 million plants went to southern landowners, and federal incentives reached $8 per planted acre. Nurseries in Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, and Georgia produced seedlings for distribution. Farmers did not have to encounter kudzu as an obscure mail-order vine. It arrived through an organized conservation network carrying federal authority. $8 does not sound dramatic today. During the Depression and its aftermath, cash attached to a conservation crop could change a farmer's decision. Not every planting succeeded. Establishing kudzu could be difficult, and many early plants died. But enough survived along farms, gullies, roads, and rail lines to create thousands of new starting points. The campaign had joined three powerful forces: a genuine land emergency, public money, and a gifted promoter. It was very good at answering one question: how do we get kudzu planted? It was far less prepared for another: who will keep managing it for the next 50 years? A crop lives inside a routine. Someone harvests it, grazes it, fences it, watches it, and decides where it belongs. Kudzu. Outside that routine behaves very differently. Below the ground, an established plant stores energy in large, deep roots. Above the ground, vines spread outward and can form new rooted crowns where their nodes touch soil. Under favorable summer conditions, a vine can grow as much as a foot in a day. That famous number is a maximum, not a promise repeated every day. But it explains why neglected kudzu can move faster than a landowner expects. The plant is also hungry for light. Kudzu performs best in open, disturbed places. It races across sunny fields and climbs trees along exposed forest edges. Deep shade slows it, which is one reason it does not march evenly through every mature forest. Road cuts, railroad banks, utility corridors, and abandoned farms gave it exactly what it wanted: disturbed soil, bright sun, and tall structures to climb. Animals had once supplied a break. Cattle, goats, and sheep readily browse young kudzu. Repeated defoliation prevents the leaves from rebuilding the energy stored below ground. Over several years, persistent grazing or cutting can weaken and sometimes eliminate a patch. That same weakness had made kudzu useful as forage and manageable as a crop. It also made the system dependent on continued labor. And kudzu was awkward labor. Its vines tangled in equipment. Hay was difficult to cut, dry, and bale. Other forage crops fit modern machinery and markets more easily. As southern agriculture changed after World War II, many small farms were consolidated, converted, or abandoned. Alabama Cooperative Extension identifies farmland abandonment as one contributor to kudzu's uncontrolled spread. The cattle stopped browsing, the mowing stopped, but the roots remained. If a plant stays useful only while people keep removing its growth, what happens when the people leave? The answer appeared along the new visual corridors of the South. Drivers saw entire banks coated in green. Vines climbed young trees, then used those trees as ladders. A plant promoted to cover damaged soil began covering the evidence of abandoned land itself. The vine had not changed. The landscape around it had. Not every modern kudzu patch came from a subsidized field, and public policy did not control every step of its spread. But federal promotion multiplied the starting points and gave the plant official legitimacy. Abandonment then removed the routine that had kept many plantings in place. America had scaled a living tool. It had not secured the relationship required to control it. The official retreat did not happen in one dramatic announcement. America's war on kudzu arrived through a series of administrative reversals. In 1953, the USDA removed kudzu from the list of cover plants permitted under the Agricultural Conservation Program. In 1962, the Soil Conservation Service limited its recommendation to places far from developed areas. By 1970, the USDA listed kudzu as a common weed in the South. Then, in 1997, Congress added kudzu by name to the Federal Noxious Weed Act. In a little more than half a century, the federal system had moved from helping people establish the vine to formally identifying it as a threat. The reversal was institutionally neat. The cost was not. Public money had helped place kudzu on private land, road banks, and shared landscapes. Eradication required repeated labor long after the original payment was gone. The generation receiving the control bill was not always the generation that had accepted the plant. For landowners, foresters, and utility crews, the threat was not imaginary. Dense kudzu can block light from saplings and native plants. When it reaches a tree canopy, its foliage competes for sunlight while layers of old vine add weight. Trees can weaken, break, or fall. Along utility and rail corridors, repeated control consumes time and money. This is where the story needs an honest counterpoint. Kudzu is not an innocent victim of bad publicity. The warm, wet southern climate favored it. For much of its American history, it lacked the full community of insects and diseases that checked it in its native range. Its roots store enough energy to survive casual cutting, and a neglected patch can demand years of follow-up. Some plantings were always likely to escape. Government did not create kudzu's growth rate. It created scale, distribution, and trust. That distinction matters. A bad policy can help create a real pest. Calling the plant a pest later does not erase the policy. The farmers who accepted seedlings were following the best supported conservation message of their time. Later, landowners inherited a different message: control the vine, protect the trees, and pay for the work. That imbalance is easy to miss. Establishment had a campaign, a subsidy, clubs, and a celebrated spokesman. Removal usually arrived as an individual problem at the edge of someone's field. America had socialized the enthusiasm and privatized much of the cleanup. The miracle had become a liability. The public solution had become a private burden. But then kudzu acquired a second kind of growth, one that happened in stories, photographs, and southern memory. Kudzu became known as the vine that ate the South. Photographs made the claim feel true. A house disappeared under leaves. A telephone pole became a green tower. A line of trees turned into one continuous shape. Yet the most repeated acreage numbers are remarkably uncertain. For years, articles claimed that kudzu covered 7 million, 8 million, or even 9 million American acres. A more careful U.S. Forest Service inventory found kudzu present on about 227,000 acres of southern forest land. That figure is not a complete count of every roadside, city lot, field, or utility corridor. It should not be used to pretend that kudzu is harmless, but it shows how far the legend ran ahead of measured forest coverage. Kudzu grows where people are most likely to notice it. A sunny highway edge is both ideal habitat and a public billboard. The vine did not need to cover the whole South. It only needed to cover the routes through which the South saw itself. So what can realistically return from this history? Not a new kudzu planting campaign. On existing infestations, controlled grazing can be one part of a long management plan. Repeated cutting can exhaust smaller or younger patches. Some sites require carefully selected herbicides and years of monitoring. The correct method depends on the land, water, neighboring plants, and age of the infestation, so local extension or invasive plant specialists should guide the work. There is also a forgotten food story, but it needs boundaries. Across East Asia, kudzu relatives have long been used for food and fiber. In Japan, processors traditionally washed and settled starch from mature roots to make kuzu, a valued thickener for translucent sweets and savory dishes. The process required knowledge and labor. Roots were broken down, their starch washed free from fiber, settled, cleaned repeatedly, and dried. That transformation, not the raw vine alone, created the valued ingredient. It is a reminder that a useful crop is not merely a species. It is a species joined to skill, work, and culture. That tradition proves kudzu is not biologically destined to be waste. It does not make an American roadside patch a free pantry. Do not plant kudzu. Do not casually harvest or eat roadside vines. They may be misidentified, contaminated, or treated with herbicide, and collection may violate property rules or state law. Commercially produced kudzu is the safer way to encounter that food tradition. The practical lesson is not that America should love kudzu again. It is that management decides whether abundance remains useful or becomes a burden. The next time you see kudzu rolling over a southern roadside, look at it twice. The first image is real, a powerful invasive vine that can smother plants, damage trees, and outlast casual attempts to remove it. The second image is hidden beneath the leaves. It is an eroded cotton field, a federal conservation bulletin, a bundle of subsidized seedlings, Channing Cope speaking to thousands, and a farm routine that did not survive as long as the roots did. Kudzu is neither an innocent crop nor a botanical villain acting alone. It is a monument to a familiar human habit, choosing a fast-living solution, spreading it widely, and forgetting that living systems require long relationships. America paid farmers to plant kudzu. Then it declared war on the result. The vine deserves control. The policy deserves memory. Who carries more responsibility for the kudzu crisis, the plant itself or the institutions that paid America to spread it? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe to Forgotten Crop for more food history buried beneath our feet.